So, you're around a lot of heavy medications, right? And you were talking about things like anxiety before. What do you think about people using medicine or chemicals to be controlling their mental health issues?
So I obviously think that there's a place for that. Um, that's part of what pays my mortgage, right? Is I dispense medicine to people. So I do believe in it. I do believe there's a place for it. My problem is that's the first place people go to. You go to a primary care provider and you talk to them, you say, I've had all this stress. I'm yelling at my wife all the time, I'm being a jerk to my kids. I just I can't seem to cope anymore. So, okay, well, how about we try some Zoloft here? That I know that's helped a lot of other people. That should try that for about 6 weeks and see if you show a difference. And you go back in 6 weeks and you're like, I'm probably better. And they said, well, we put you only on 50 milligrams. Let's try 100 milligrams. And then you go, it's just this vicious cycle where you don't think it's working anymore. Like, well, okay, well, let's try some Effexor instead. And it's just, you get it's approached way to the ease of which we can prescribe medications for these disorders is I feel like we're way too trigger happy on it. By we, I meant I shouldn't say we. Doctors are, healthcare providers are.
And so a big one that came up that kind of hit everybody's news radars that was paying attention was the Jordan Peterson, the Canadian psychologist that often talks to people about cleaning up their room, taking responsibility for themselves, pushing themselves forward. He had some depression issues and took some benzodiazepines and then developed a hardcore addiction to them and said he couldn't get off them. So he was like over in Russia. What are benzodiazepines?
They're your Xanax, your Valium, Ativan. They're a mild hypnotic, and they are a classification by the DEA as far as addiction potential. So there's a significant level of addiction possibility with them, and addiction can happen with these medications within a few doses. And so the place benzodiazepines are supposed to play in anxiety, depression are you're supposed to take them for a month and then wean off of them for while let me back up here. The reason that you have that benzodiazepine taper is a lot of the SSRIs, like your Zolofts, your Prozacs, even your Effexors, they take like 6 weeks to reach their steady state. They're
like enough dose being in there with enough half-life that it actually impacts you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And they take about 6 weeks. And so the benzos are supposed to be prescribed for like 4 weeks and then gradually tapered off. But people aren't doing that. And like I said earlier, I mean, there's the potential for abuse only within or addiction only within a few doses. And they're way overprescribed. And
what are they supposed to be doing? Why does somebody get a benzodiazepine prescribed to them?
So they're a calming agent. They work on, I can't for the life of me think of the system they work on. My pharmacology teacher is going to come back and strangle me for this, but what they do is they provide a calming effect to someone who is, people will call them a nerve pill. You hear somebody saw that, a little old lady come to the pharmacy, I need my nerve pill. That's generally a Xanax or a Valium or something like that. And they kind of will mellow a person out. They will make them not so irritable, not so really not so anxious.
Anxious Well, but then eventually, when they want to get off of them, what is the addiction response? What does it feel like?
It's like there's respiratory issues, there's like psychological things, there's it's almost like a rebound effect. Like it's worse than the anxiety was that you were treating, right? It's just it affects everyone differently, but there's you can have cardio, you can have tachycardia, increased heart rate, all these things that are just the body needing that. It's like you give your car premium gasoline. This is probably a bad example, but you take that away from it, all of a sudden, well, it's not going to perform at the level that it's supposed to. And you're putting chemicals in your body, and you're maintaining a homeostasis. Your body's become used to that. Then you take those chemicals away, it's doesn't have the right chemicals in it to function properly, or how it's been used to functioning.
Anxiety, I was reading...
That was kind of muddy. I'm sorry. But.
No, I mean, I get it. I mean, what it makes me think of is that anxiety is one of those things. If you go read Carl Jung and what he talks about with anxiety, he says the one good thing about anxiety is that it is referring to something going on in the present. You don't have to go dig around in somebody's past about some problems they had with their parents or something they haven't gotten over since they were a child. That feeling of anxiety is something that their brain is trying to tell them, you need to pay attention to this, or you need to let this go, or you need to move past this. And so the concept of medicating that is like, I'm sure there are circumstances where they're needed. I've never had to deal with the depths of needing to go in the medical direction, but it also is a nihilistic path, because it's just saying like, hey, I don't know how to figure out what this problem is, and I'm gonna take the nap for a while, and hopefully I wake up from the nap and I'm not in more pain than I was when I started.
So. And I heard this recently from someone. It was Dr. John Deloney. He's actually a mental health specialist with Dave Ramsey, with Ramsey Solutions. I was listening to him this week, and he made the really great point in that anxiety in itself isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's a good thing. It's a tool, because it helps you know that there is something wrong. There's a negative or something you perceive as a negative stimulus, and that's your reaction to that. That it's like a conditioning thing, an instinctual thing to, you've got
absolutely.
Yeah, you've got a big test coming up. You've got a big presentation at work. I mean,
you're not dealing with a problem, and you're ignoring it, and you're trying to be like, I'm just going to keep walking past that, and hopefully it won't be here when I get back.
So there's the problem, Vance. The problem is people the anxiety is there, but we mask it. And the problem is we aren't doing enough to cope with it. We need to get better at actually addressing whatever the problems are coming our way. We need to get better at understanding that this thing isn't going, if we push it away, it's not going to go away. Someone described it to me one time as like, say there's this room in your house and there's a light bulb out. You've got to change that light bulb. But you keep ignoring it. And what happens when you keep ignoring it? It keeps nagging at you even more and more and more. What's the only solution to that problem? Go put a new light bulb in, and that's the way we have to treat anxiety. That's the way we have to treat these things. We have to address them. We can't ignore them. And I think so many people just want to ignore them and want to just think that it's going to go away when it's not really going to go away. We just have to find a better way of coping with it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the challenge that I have with the mantras that seem to go around about empathy with helping somebody get through their problems, when the focus is on, you have to really know where they're coming from, because I think you should have compassion for people. I think you should be like, hey, it would be awful to have those issues, But anything other than helping get them on their feet so that they can move towards the solution that they themselves want to find, that they have chosen that they're going to get up and solve. I think anything else it's not necessarily helping. I don't think it's good to go to people and say you're great the way that you are, because if they're feeling anxiety, they're like, well, then I feel anxiety. What am I supposed to just stop feeling this?
Yeah, no, I mean, you have to.
Thanks for checking out this podcast short. If you like this interview, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and hit that bell so you always get notified about this podcast. And if you're really interested in conversations like this, you may want to consider joining the Articulate Ventures Network. To find out more, go to network.articulate.ventures.